Episode 5, The Crime.
I was still looking at the dim hall where Vlad disappeared moments ago.
Our time, Romania, the castle.
My body gave in, and I staggered and grabbed the doorframe.
Laya!
Immediately, Leo picked me up and carried me gently to the only bed in the room.
Your relationship with Leo is good enough.
He closed the door and sat next to me on the bed, pressing me against himself strongly yet delicately. The warmth of his embrace pulled me back to reality slowly, and my shivers subsided. He removed the wet strands of hair stuck to my forehead.
Can you tell me what happened?
A porcelain dish fell from the shelf, its shards scattered across the floor. My heart sank instantly. I looked at the shelf where the big hourglass was standing. Leo's eyes were fixed on it too.
What the...
The sand was seeping through the narrow neck slowly, but not upside down. It was going up. Oh! The window opened with a bang, rattling the curtains. The sound filled the room along with the cold night air. The choir of hundreds of mournful voices I heard upstairs was chanting one word now. Leo stepped to the window decisively and looked out, listening. But the next moment, everything stopped. There was complete silence. As if an invisible conductor waved his baton, making an orchestra hush. The curtains were swaying peacefully, and the sand in the hourglass was seeping down lazily as it was supposed to. I felt like everything before was a dream I just woke up from.
Did you and Vlad see something similar?
Yes. I told him about the voices and the lake. Nervousness made my voice shake. It's some devilry, but there must be an explanation, right? Leo shook his head.
Whatever it was, it's all over now. You need to sleep. Don't worry, I'll be close.
He sat down in the armchair, fully intent to spend the night there. Leo, don't leave. He smiled, pushed his armchair closer and tucked my duvet in.
Of course, I already said I'd be here for you. Sleep.
I closed my eyes and drifted off almost immediately. When I woke up in the morning, Leo wasn't there. I washed my face in a hurry and went to the yard in front of the castle.
Bună dimineața!
At first, I didn't even notice Sandra squatting next to a hole in the castle wall. What are you doing?
There's something in there.
I leaned into the hole. A pair of eyes sparkled at me from the darkness. It looks like a cat. Let's take a step back, and maybe it'll come out. We stood at some distance from the hole. Even then, in the early morning, the scenery around the castle didn't look welcoming. Fog was hiding the mountains, and the sun seemed to avoid the castle.
I've listened to so many legends and scary tales about this castle as a kid.
They must have come from somewhere, right? There's no smoke without fire.
Well, this place is as unusual as it goes. Equipment goes crazy here, and there are tons of other strange stuff. But there's nothing mystical about it. My teacher used to say it was all because of the metals hidden in these mountains. Geomagnetic fields, yada yada. Of course, people didn't know it in the past, so they invented other explanations.
Sandra's words made me feel better. That was the kind of explanation I expected. By the way, have you seen the others?
No, they must be still asleep.
I'll go to the terrace and see. Oh, and I'll get some goodies for this mysterious animal. Maybe we'll lure it out.
Great idea. I'll keep my eye on it.
I saw Anton on the terrace in the patio. He was serving out a tray for coffee.
Good morning, miss.
Good morning, Anton. Who's the coffee for?
Mr. Vlad asked for it.
Until that moment, I was chasing away the dark thoughts about something happening to Vlad in the night. Once I heard he was at home, I immediately felt as if a great weight has been lifted off my soul.
He and Mr. Leo are off to throw some knives.
At first, I didn't register his words, but then my face got pale. Knives? Alone. Vlad and Leo, I must be there. Anton, where are they?
I can't tell. The master said not to bother them. He just said to bring the coffee over.
Then I'll take the coffee to them.
As you wish, miss. You're the lady of the house.
The butler won't dare to go against the lady's will.
He moved the tray over to me and pointed me in the right direction.
They're by the big oak. Enter the garden, then go left on the path, then forward.
I took off running.
Miss, you forgot the coffee.
Here's the garden. Where do I go next? To the left, then forward. A twisty path took me past trees and bushes. Soon, I saw the crown of a huge oak. It's here. A green, thick hedge separated me from the clearing. I came closer and peeked through the foliage cautiously. There was a target plank, as high as a person under the oak. A knife flew right before my eyes, hitting the desk loudly right next to other knives.
It's my turn to gather them.
Leo approached the target and took to yanking all the blades out.
Oh, wait. There's another valet.
My heart sank as I saw Vlad pick up a double-bladed knife and aim. I was a moment away from screaming, but Leo said calmly,
Throw it.
He stepped a foot away from the target and waited indifferently.
Aren't you afraid I'd miss?
So far, you've never missed. Why would you now?
What if I do it on purpose?
It would be simpler to let me die in the torture chamber yesterday.
Vlad's valet hit the bullseye. Leo took it out and walked back. I'll listen from here.
Leo, thank you for keeping an eye on her last night.
I didn't do it for you.
They stood next to each other. Leo aimed.
Where did you go off to last night?
Vlad didn't answer.
You've got way too many secrets.
Leo threw several knives and all of them hit the mark.
But you brought her to me. That means you put her safety above your interests.
What interests?
Leo shook his head and smirked. Only an idiot would believe you brought her here for the paintings. No, you need Laya. You have a thing for her.
Vlad didn't react at all. He threw his portion of the knives into the plank, never missing the mark.
You know nothing about me.
I don't care. The only thing that's important to me is for Laya to be safe and sound, and I'll do everything for it.
I know.
Vlad lowered his hand with a knife in it and looked at Leo.
I've got the situation under control. But if there is a faintest risk, and there always is, Leo, come back to the castle today and live with us.
Oh, that's new. The night walk must have had a strange effect on you.
Vlad let his irony slip.
Be there for her, especially when I'm not here.
Are you sure you won't regret it?
Suddenly, Vlad threw his knife vigorously, that time almost missing the plank. Then he turned to Leo, his eyes shooting fire.
Be there for her, but not too close.
So, staying on your terms? As the master's girlfriend bodyguard who can't even look at her? That won't do. I'll stay, but don't expect me to play nice. Let's be honest, rivals.
Well then, that seems to be fair.
Leo tossed the last knife into the center of the target and turned to Vlad, offering him his hand.
I've got the full set. You've got -1, so you lost.
Vlad shook his hand and smiled with the corner of his eyes.
Just one small battle. Where's Anton with the coffee?
You've learned important information.
Sandra appeared on the path, waving her hand.
Hey, where's Laya? Anton told me. She rushed to you.
The guys shared a confused look. I realized it was pointless to continue hiding and went into the clearing.
Ah, there you are. I've been waiting for you, and I got worried.
It's okay. I just found out that the men went to throw knives. And I got angry. Knives! Of course, what else would they do in the morning? What kind of testosterone game is that? I had to run and keep an eye on them in case they decided to throw them at each other.
If we had that in mind, I doubt you'd be able to prevent it.
Uh-huh.
Come on, stop bickering. Let's get to the terrace.
Anton met us with a sour face and went to brew new coffee because the old one had gone cold.
Leo, you're leaving now, right? Can you give me a ride to my village?
Sure.
Millie wanted to come too to see the lambs. Laya, why don't you come with us?
Thanks, but I need to get someplace else, to the Brasov Museum. I want to find out where the other 3 paintings went while they're still traceable. Vlad gave me a strange look. He didn't seem to approve of that idea.
Laya, you can come with me. Let's go to Brasov and then come pick Nosferatu up.
It's the opposite direction.
Whatever. I don't mind.
There's another option. Leo could get us to the village and move on. And we'll stay with my family for a bit, then take my pickup and ride to Brasov.
The simplest way is to come with me.
All 3 of them looked at me, and I realized the decision was mine. It's really the simplest way. Leo is in a hurry. Let him ride alone, and we'll go later.
Your relationship with Vlad has improved.
Sandra, we can take you and Millie to the village. Oh, we should probably wake her up already.
Fine, we'll go with you.
Leo left right away, while we spent another hour waking Millie up, having breakfast and getting ready. Finally, the 4 of us left the castle in Vlad's car. I couldn't help but stare at the view from the rear window. This castle is so beautiful, eerie, but beautiful. These mountains, fog, and the circling birds, it's all so mesmerizing. Soon we came to the cold village. Vlad stopped the car and we all got out.
It's much more welcoming this time.
Vlad looked around, intrigued. Some girl ran on the road and rushed towards Sandra.
Ah! I'll kill you, dork! You haven't showed up here for 3 years.
She took to hugging and kissing Sandra with vigor, and Millie whispered,
Leo and I saw her the last time. She was laughing hysterically. But now she's normal and cute.
Meet my sister, Ilinka.
The girl beamed and hugged us all in turn. Me, then Millie. She hesitated next to Vlad. He was looking at her with a welcoming smile, but Ilinka didn't hug him and turned away, confused. The gate screeched, and a tall, very gloomy man went outside.
We saw him too.
The man ignored us completely, stopping next to Sandra.
Bună, tată. Eu am venit.
She smiled at him cheerfully, with a hint of guilt. He looked at her ghoulishly for an answer, his lips twisted. Then he turned away with indifference, moved on, and soon turned around the corner. Sandra was standing there, perplexed. Who's that?
It's our father, Mihai.
He hasn't seen his daughter in 3 years, and this is how he greets her?
He has never been nice and warm, but this is new. Ilinka, what's up with him?
I have no clue. He's been very weird lately. He doesn't talk, he doesn't sleep at home, he's basically living in his mill. He's just returned here in the morning, all morose and leaving already. Now we won't see him for another 2 days, that's for sure.
Sandra, we can stay here if you want to. I didn't want to leave her alone at a moment like that. Brasov will wait. We can stay with you.
Thank you, Laya, but there's no need.
You were ready to cancel your plans for Sandra. She appreciates it.
I'm fine. I've got Ilinka and Millie.
Are you sure? Millie, you didn't change your mind, did you?
Laya, it's okay. We're grown-ups. We can sort it out.
Soon, we said goodbye to them and continued our trip to Brasov. The car was going fast on the highway. I was absorbed in my thoughts.
Sandra's a good girl, as well as her sister, even though they're so different.
What? Yes. Vlad, about last night.
Please don't ask me, Laya. All you need to know is that you've got nothing to be afraid of.
That's why you asked Leo to stay? Vlad cast a short, sharp glance at me and watched the road again.
You shouldn't have listened in on that conversation. It's men's business.
We approached the museum. It looked different this time. The building was clearly being renovated, and the driveway was closed. Vlad parked the car, and we got out and started looking around. I noticed a piece of paper on the doors, informing visitors that the museum was closed for reconstruction. No, did we come here in vain? Vlad outstretched his hand behind the rope that was obstructing the way and pushed the door. To our surprise, it opened. I quivered. A serious-looking girl frowning with displeasure was standing behind us. Hello? We'd like to speak to the custodian.
Can you read? It says right here we're being reconstructed.
Vlad came closer to her and she moved back.
We can see it just fine. You don't have to be rude.
It's important. We came from afar. She gave Vlad a side eye but clearly decided to stick to her guns.
Leave Grandpa alone. Everyone wants to see him.
So you're his granddaughter? My name is Laya Burnell. The girl winced even more upon hearing my name.
Leave. Don't bother him. He's not working now.
She slipped into the door, pushing me on her way, and locked it from inside. That was unexpected. Vlad gave the door a yank, but to no avail. What do we do? Suddenly, a deafening scream came from the museum, and then another and another. It's her, screaming. We need to help her. But how do we get inside? Go through the window. I looked at the nearest window. It was cracked open. Vlad, give me a lift. He picked me up, and I climbed onto the windowsill. I put my hand in the window slit, managed to open the window from within, and got inside. Vlad pulled himself up and followed me. I jumped from the sill and almost landed into a dark puddle on the floor. Then it hit me. It was blood. What? My eyes scanned the floor, unable to go up. Blood was covering the whole floor and even walls. The custodian's granddaughter was sitting in the corner. Her face was pale as ashes. She was hugging her knees and moaning quietly. I couldn't help but trace the path of the blood. It was leaking from the next room. As if enchanted, I took a step toward it, and...
Laya, no! Wait.
Vlad stood before me, covering the door frame with his body. He stared there unmovingly for a few seconds, then slammed the door shut. He produced his phone and called the police. Suddenly, the girl looked up with glassy eyes and chanted,
In Pisces. He's cut in Pisces.
My whole body shook. I leaned against the windowsill and covered my eyes with my hands. This is horrifying.
The paintings. It's all those damn paintings, I'm sure. It was the devil that gave them to him. But his blood is on my hands, too.
She was shrieking now. Vlad squatted next to her and touched her shoulder lightly.
What's your name?
Mariana.
Mariana, what happened to the paintings? I know there were 6 of them. But only 3 got to Miss Burnell. Do you know what happened to the others?
She closed her eyes with her hands and babbled.
Yes, there were 6 of them, but... I heard Grandpa talking on the phone with that American guy, Vincent. They were discussing the price, and I thought, what an old fool. How can he give them away for such a measly sum? So I told him not to give them away. We'd find more generous buyers. Grandpa was so agreeable, he never said no to me.
Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she continued telling the story.
But he stood his ground. He said that first, he already reached an agreement with Vincent. And then, and this is the main point, the young benefactor who gave the paintings to the museum wanted Vincent to have them, and no one else.
What about Bloom? He was offering them to Bloom, too. Mariana shook her head.
No, he didn't offer anything to Bloom. That's how the benefactor told him to act. He told him to tell Vincent his rival was going to get the paintings so that Vincent would come running. And then I figured out Grandpa was saying a series of paintings when talking to Vincent, never stating the exact amount. So I convinced him to give only 3 paintings to Vincent. That way, we'd keep the agreement with your boss and fulfill the promise to the benefactor. We never agreed to give all the paintings to Vincent. He'd be fine with just 3. And I offered to sell the remaining 3 in a closed dealership for a heftier sum. Said we could go for a really nice renovation in the museum. That's the only thing Grandpa agreed to. He never wanted anything for himself, but he was willing to do anything for the museum.
So who bought the remaining paintings?
A local aristocrat named Gradish. The others came later, including Bloom's people, but it was too late.
Vlad got up in one move and repeated broodingly,
Gradish.
I heard police sirens wailing. The police will be here any minute. I'll ask her the last question. Mariana, what do you know about the benefactor?
Almost nothing, except for him being a young man. Oh, and he's a foreigner.
The police rushed into the room. The explanations, the protocols, it all took several hours. Vlad was the one talking to the policemen. They were very respectful towards him. I guess they left me alone thanks to his request. Finally, they let us go, and we went back to the castle. Upon approaching it, the car stopped abruptly. Vlad got up from his seat and looked through the front window with a frown. He left the car, and I followed him. Vlad, what's this? I saw circles burned in the grass, and stones were laid out in strange patterns. Several stones were laying on the road, blocking the way. Was it some kind of a ritual?
It's just something stupid.
He kicked the stones off the path.
Get in, Laya. We can go now.
The castle loomed over us as we got closer, and that's when I noticed another strange thing. There are no more birds over the castle, not a single one.
They say that means rain.
As soon as we arrived at the castle, I headed straight to my room. I felt as though the terrible smell of blood soaked through my clothes and skin. I need to get to the shower and wash it off, and change my clothes. I'll wear... The hot shower and a fresh look cheered me up a bit, but the horrific events of the day wouldn't leave my mind. I felt like going to the past all of a sudden. Maybe that's where I'll find some peace. I got out a painting, and in several minutes, my wish came true.
(1444), the Ottoman Empire, the Sultan's palace in Edirne.
Lael went forward without looking where she was going. Thorns were picking at her new dress, but she wasn't noticing them. The training ground loomed ahead. Lael stopped, wiped her tears with her hand, and then approached the fence. The lesson was in full swing. Young men were sword fighting, and a huge man was walking between them, Ali Bey. Lael noticed that her friends, Aslan and Vlad, were fighting with each other.
What about this? Take that.
A couple of vigorous attacks, and Vlad was lying on the grass under his friend's sword. Aslan offered him a hand, but Vlad sprang to his feet and forced his sword into the ground.
Another round? What's the point? You're bigger and stronger than me. I'm wasting my time.
Ali Bey's heavy hand lowered on his shoulder from behind.
Vlad, come here.
Vlad frowned and approached the teacher.
Yes, he's bigger and stronger for now. But do you think the enemies you'll face when you become the ruler will be smaller or equal to you?
Vlad shook his head.
No, they all are much bigger than my country.
That's right, but that doesn't mean you'll lose. Strength is not everything. Think, observe, watch your opponent and find his weak spot. Go.
Vlad grabbed his sword again. This time, he didn't hurry to attack. He narrowed his eyes and watched every Aslan's move like a hawk. Vlad lost the next two confrontations, but he managed to kick the sword out of Aslan's hand the third time.
Yes!
He couldn't contain his victory yell. Ali Bey patted his shoulder, grinning.
Well, what did you see?
His left hand is slower than his right.
Good. Go. We're done for today.
Aslan noticed Leal and approached the fence, casting his hair from his face with a busy look.
Just so you'd know, I let him win.
No, you didn't.
Come on, I'm impressing her.
Leal stood on one side of the fence, and the boys stood next to her on another.
It might be our last time standing like this, chatting about nothing and everything. They'll be transferred soon. They'll disappear from my life. Give in to emotions.
She rose up to the fence, pulled their heads close, and cried bitterly.
Lael.
Lael, what's the matter?
It's Mehmed. His first order is to kick the Outlanders from the palace school. They'll transfer you, maybe even to another town.
They looked at her, perplexed. Their faces looked as though they were still in denial, or didn't understand.
Lael, come on, while they'll be setting up that school.
Alas, this school already exists. I've heard where the Outlanders will be taken.
The big man looked heartbroken.
It's not a school. It's a barrack, almost a prison. The ones that will study there will need all their will and courage.
The teacher Mustafa was adjusting his mantle nervously.
Lale Hatun, you're here. Very well. I know you studied for tomorrow's contest, yet I'm still nervous.
The teacher counts on you.
Lale approached the teacher. She got awfully red in the face, looked down, and uttered in a shaky voice,
Sorry, Mustafa Hojam, but I don't think I'm ready. There's been so much happening these past weeks that I almost never found time to study.
The teacher looked at her in disbelief, as if he couldn't believe his ears.
But your promise? You've always been so responsible, I didn't think you'd break your promise.
He looked at her, completely upset.
Anyway, you need to go and perform, however that goes. Also, Lale Hatun, I gave you a scroll with Socrates' writings to prepare. Take it with you. I need to return it to my friend who will be at the contest.
Yes, of course, I'll take it. I need to hurry to the harem, find Zara, and retrieve the scroll.
A servant opened the door for Layla, and she stepped into the harem.
The dark stained glass doesn't let much sun in here. Poor girls. They live in a cage. Good evening, Gul Hatun.
The elder of the harem turned to her and bowed her head welcomingly.
Good evening, young lady. What can I do for you?
I want to see one of the girls, Zara.
Zara? Well, there she is. Come here.
Only then Lael noticed the girl sitting in the corner. Her head was lowered, and her shoulders were shaking slightly. She obeyed the elder's order and approached them. Lal stared at her red eyes in surprise.
I was just thinking what punishment to pick for her. Can you imagine what she'd done? She found some scroll and sat here reading, oh, so smart, like a lady.
The woman pointed to the scroll in the pillows, clearly disgusted.
That's right. I gave her that.
Gul Khatun stared at her in disbelief.
Yes, that's why I'm here. Tomorrow, the students of the palace school will be performing at a science contest. And we need a helper. One who can write, and you know how bad servants are at that. Zara turned out to be quite educated, so I proposed we'd take her. I hope you don't mind.
Gul Khatun clearly didn't expect this turn of events. She looked at Lael closely, as though deciding if she could trust her.
You're a niece of Murid II, and from what I've heard, very loved and respected by him. I think I can let her go with you.
The high respect at the palace helped you.
Lael noticed Zara's face brighten.
Thank you. I'll send a servant to get her. And, yeah, I'll take the scroll.
Mustafa Hojam looked at the hall with dismay. Lael looked out from behind his shoulder timidly. The strict honorable elders, the contest judges, and a crowd of men of science were frankly terrifying her. The teacher looked defeated, sure of failure.
Here goes nothing. Mustafa Hojam. I brought a very clever girl with me. If you allow it, she'll go instead of me. He's very educated. Her father is a scholar.
But then, I must know her.
You see, she's from the harem.
The teacher threw his hands up.
How did you manage to get her here?
It's a long story. Zara, come here.
Zara bowed with respect.
Fine, let Zara go. Oh Lord, what am I doing?
Thank you for the honor.
Lala handed the reading instruments to Zara. She walked into the hall and bowed to the jury. First, she completed the written assignments. Then she answered their questions. Mustafa Hojam was listening to the answers with surprise, nodding his head in agreement.
She's smart. She's very smart.
When the contest ended, the judges spent several hours checking the assignments and conferring. Finally, they asked Mustafa Hojam to read the results as the honorary member of the council.
The list of 10 winners according to the scored points. The 10th place.
He started reading and hesitated for a second when he got to the 5th line.
The 5th place. The student who went instead of Lal Khatun, Zara.
Lal felt elevated and sad at the same time.
I was so reckless. The teacher said this performance determined if other girls will be allowed to go to the school. If they approve it, I'll ask for Zara to go first. She deserves it more than Nure or me.
I started waking up. The first feeling that came back was bitter cold. My whole body was entangled in something, and I couldn't move. My wrists and ankles were squeezed, and something was pricking my shoulders. Ah! I opened my eyes and realized I was laying on a table in the center of a big, gloomy chamber. My body was tied with grapevine. Dark burgundy roses were lying around me, and all around candles were burning. A heavy wooden chandelier was swinging above my head. Ah! I screamed, and nearby, someone answered with a whiny moan. I turned my head and saw a man next to the table. He was tied and hung up head down on an iron crook. There was a gag in his mouth. Anton? The butler was looking at me with bleary, clueless eyes. The next second, I saw a knife blade above me. And then I saw the one holding it, leaning over me.